I don't care because it's so this is a pretty special night for us. As many of you know, we've been doing this digital dinner since 2006. And of course, in 2006, it was not about a mode that many of us are involved in today. It was about DSTAR. And it happened around here, and we with the pizza places and this, that, and the other thing. But tonight, we actually have, for the first time, a guest speaker, which means I'm not going to say much. Impossible! We have Jerry Wanger. Now, there's been several people, mostly from Southern California. Southern California has got this amazing structure in their mentality. They get on DMR and they talk about DSTAR. Now, I personally don't get it. DSTAR is a great mode.
I'm going to defend so.
Oh, yeah!
Go easy, young man.
And then they get on DSTAR and they talk about DMR, which is hilarious. So Jerry really is the perfect guy for that, because as Jerry will probably share with us, his plans are to come out with a radio that at least does both, if not more. So, you know, as we all know, as you break into the digital world in amateur radio, the challenge really is the multitude of digital modes and voice. And there really is a problem. Not only do we have to worry about a dual band, a 2-meter and a 440 that doesn't exist yet, but if you really want to embrace digital communications today, now in 2006 you really only had to worry about DSTAR, but today you got to worry about DSTAR, you got to worry about DMR, you got to worry about P25, you got to worry about Next Edge, and you got to worry about Fusion. So you got to have all of these radios in your car on both bands. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that's a lot of antennas on the car. So that's going to then decrease the gas mileage of the vehicle. The National Transportation System will be all over us because we screwed up the gas mileage stuff for everybody. And, you know, we're going to be going solar in our cars next time, you know, with a little dish on it. So anyway, thanks for coming. I guess, you know, for those of you that didn't wait, that are already eating, thanks. Everyone else, eat first, order it probably kind of in midstream to your eating. You know, Jerry will get up and kind of do whatever he wants to do, okay? Yeah, everybody good with that? Okay, tomorrow it's 11 o'clock, right? 11 o'clock tomorrow is the presentation. Once again, it's Hawaii's putting that on. As far as the main focus of that is guys from Hawaii. They got the nicest shirts. We still haven't gotten any DMR shirts for us, but Hawaii's got some nice shirts. I didn't get one yet. But anyway, and then we're gonna have the booth at the the stuff. We got a DMR repeater that's actually it's not active now because we took it down, but it will be active again tomorrow. And that's on UHF. It's in the lobby, and it's or not the lobby, but by our booth area. So enjoy. Don't drink and drive. That's news for some of us. What? Actually, there's a guy in the room here that knows me the longest. He knew the other Tim Barrett, and that was the drunkard and drug addicted Tim Barrett. That was a lot of years ago. And he says, I figured you'd go to a sports bar. I don't drink anymore. He said, what? So, anyway, I don't think he does either, drink as much. So.
Related to CSI. Was it probably about 2 years ago, we sold one of our products to a commercial customer. And if you're familiar with this business, a lot of our commercial customers, dealers and so forth, they're also hams. So here's this guy, gets a radio, which is selling him for $180, and he tells everybody else as soon as he got the radio, over the air, hey, look what I just got for $180, and this is comparison to the Motorola's XPR 5550s, or I think it's 6550s, that at that time was selling for around $610 at his cost. And turns out that the radios not only work about as, was about the same quality as the Motorola's, they also were a little more sensitive. And it took off after that. So for the first time, it allowed people to have a radio for $180 that will allow them to work with the worldwide DMR network. Before you used, as I said, at cost, dealer cost, it was I think it was $610, $618. Plus you had another, I think it's $255 for the programming software and $70 for the programming cable. So and that so now the average ham was able to afford something like that, and so we went from around 4,000 users at that time to now currently about 20,000 users. We don't have all that market, but we probably have about half of it. Okay, so that's how we got into it. It was strictly got into the ham side of the market by accident. We weren't planning on going after the hams. Although as a company, we have been selling to hams since about 1983, particularly phone patches. Still sell a few phone patches, but not very many anymore. So most of our business is ham and commercial radios. Something you have to think about from a company standpoint. Okay, we occasionally will sell to these. I have a particular customer from France, and we sell them typically like 500 to 700 radios at a time. To sell to hams, we're basically selling We're basically selling one radio at a time to 700 different people, and the profit is about the same. So, but the advantage of is when at least for the staff who's supporting it, it's much more enjoyable to sell to people who actually enjoy what they're buying than to speak to these dealers who could care less about what they have and all they care about is how much money they made this week. It's not about the money, it's more about, I guess you could say, about the fun. And and our staff feels the same way. You ever call up, speaking to Erin, she's always, always happy. She's always, just an usual type of person. And Chris is great support. Anytime there's a problem, he'll help you. And of course the company's behind everything we sell. So if you have a problem, we take care of it. And that's something which is unusual in this market, as you probably have found out dealing with other vendors. Okay, next thing I'm going to talk about is we're basically selling, well, two types of radios, but I'm going to talk about three types of radios: the CS700, the CS750, and the MD380. The MD380 is a good product. It's not quite as good technically as the CS700 and the CS750, but when you consider the price, you can't beat it. We have a special for last week and this week for $130, and but the reason why we can do that is when we first started selling those radios, it was costing us $110 for the radio and about $5 or $6 for shipping. So at that amount of money, we don't make much profit. Barely, pays for, overhead. And anyway, to get to the $130 price, we made a special deal with the company, and we get them for $90 each, which is a really great price if you understand how much it costs to make a radio. So, but anyway, even at $90 and selling for $130, it doesn't make enough money to keep the company in business. So we're just doing it as a promotion. We just opened up a new e-commerce website. We wanted to see what would happen, and we have nothing but problems with that website. But we'll solve the problems eventually. So now the question about future of DMR radios. About well, first of all, what's happening from our company, and also what's happening from other companies. So you see the CS700 and a 750. That's our main radio we're still selling. The 700 and the MD380 are basically the same radio, except the MD has a better display, at least more fancy display. The disadvantage is that it doesn't work very good in the sunlight. The other types of radios do. Now, turns out that Kerrison also made a DMR radio with the same type of display that doesn't work good in the sunlight either. In fact, their version that I have is as bad as the original version of the MD380. After enough complaints, I guess Titera decided that they'd put in a better display, and it's somewhat usable in the sunlight, but still not perfect. You just can't do a good color display in the sunlight. At least I haven't seen one. I don't know. Maybe Motorola has one. I'm not sure. No, no better.
It's so-so.
Okay. Well, anyway, so I guess there's no good color displays for for the sunlight. You have to stay with black and white if you really want good contrast. So from Connect System standpoint, we're going to come up with a radio that's based upon the CS750, but it's going to look like the MD380 with a color display. And the only real feature besides the display is going to be what's rated IP67, which means you can use the thing underwater. I'm not sure if you'd want to do it underwater, but it'll work. The current radios are basically water resistant, but not recommended to dunk it underwater. Probably only last for a minute or two after you try that. Okay, and then now about the how low can radio prices go? You have to take a look at what's inside of a radio. And first, let's compare it to these cheap analog radios. If you've ever noticed, you can get these cheap analog radios for maybe $30 retail or something. I can buy them for about $20 myself if I buy them in quantity. The reason why you can get them so cheap, they're based upon a single chip a single chip radio that costs those guys about $1.88. Just adds another few dollars and you have a radio. To do a DMR radio, first you have to pay DVSI a royalty of $6.50. Then you have to pay Motorola a royalty of $3. Then you have to use a custom chip. It's called an HRC 5000. It's going to soon change to an HRC 6000, which costs about $8.50. Then you need a fairly powerful microprocessor, which costs about $9. So if you add up all those three items, you get, or four items, you get $27 for just part of the radio. Then of course you need the display, the case, all the little hundreds of transistors and resistors and capacitors inside. And the end result is that the actual manufacturing cost of a radio in China, we think, is about $75. We're not sure the exact cost, but that's our estimate. A Motorola radio probably costs about maybe another $10 more because they're made of slightly better quality. So you're not going to see a DMR radio in the near future for $25 like you see these analog radios. So I don't think you're going to see much below what we're currently selling it for. And still, I mean, yes, if you buy it directly from the Chinese, you can get it, say, for $90, but we have to import them, which costs $6 for the cost of transportation, and we have to run the business, and we have to pay salaries and so forth. So you're not going to see it, much cheaper than what we're currently selling it for. Now, of course, Motorola sells it for a lot more, but they have a much bigger company to support. They have they do a lot. They spend a lot of money in research and development. We don't spend that much money. It's basically myself and whatever I can get out of the Chinese for helping me to develop these products. Let's see. Okay. Now, one of the things we're working on is what's called the CS7000. Now, that's a combination of DMR radios and a DSTAR radio and analog. It's based upon the CS750 architecture with just a few small modifications. The biggest modification between the two is I have to put in an external chip to do the vocoder, because in the CS750 it's done in firmware. In the CS7000 it's going to be done with the one of the DVSI AMBI 3000R chips, unless they come up with something in the next next maybe 2 or 3 months that would make me change what I want to do. We already do DMR, so we know there's no problem about doing DMR in the 750 architecture. We know we can do DSTAR because people have already done DSTAR using the same architecture that I'm using and using the same microprocessor. So the only real task for me is to integrate the two. So we've also told people that with the 7000 we're going to try to do P25 Fusion and NXDN. So the question is, can you do it? And the answer is, we don't really know. One of the problems about doing those formats is, besides having to do the normal stuff, for the overhead of the radios, the microprocessor also has to do things like implementing a digital filter. And then it has to also do what's called convolution encoding and decoding. And we don't know if that processor has the capability of doing it. Within this DMR realm, it's done in hardware, so it's not an issue. But to do the other formats, we don't know if it can be done. So all I can say is we're going to try. Whether or not it works out, I can't say. At the current time, I think I can get the 7000 out about the middle of next year, first production. No guarantee, but that's what I'm going to try. A lot of it's going to be my work. I'm going to hire probably some consultants to help me with that, and we're going to have the Chinese actually to do the final integration because they won't release the DMR firmware to me, at least not the final version. So have to depend upon them for doing a lot of the work. Now I did promise that anything I write, I'm going to have as open source, which I will. The problem is that some of the stuff in the radio is going to be the DMR, and I didn't write that, and I can't give it to you. Right. So what I will probably try to do at some point is come up with a DSTAR radio, an analog radio, that has just my code that's completely open source. And then you can try to implement the DMR radio yourself, given what information I can give you to do it. So anyway, that's basically I have to say. So is there any questions? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that I think all of us that are involved have seen is the the install base. We make these code plugs. The install base. Some of you, and this is not a stone, but some of you learn how to program, others don't, and you rely on code plugs being made by somebody else for you. And the problem with that is that if you take, let's say, the standard code plug and you load it into your radio, and then you add some analog stuff, or you add anything on your own, when you write the new one, it basically puts just the new one in. Well, that's obviously a challenge. And the thing that causes that is, Mark will come up with a new talk group. He'll come up with the Jenny 2 talk group or something, or whatever it is. But it's not in anyone's radio. So everybody goes crazy. They got to update the code plugs on their website. And of course, so Papa updates their code plugs. They give their members the new code plug. But when the Papa member loads the new code plug, it wipes out anything custom that they did, which is a problem. So the front panel programming capability, if that could be something that was easy, and if it then could be saved to memory. So for instance, if a new talk group was created on the fly and then saved into your contact list permanently, you basically can modify your code plugs yourselves relatively easily. And then once the contacts are there, which is the talk groups effectively, when you add a new frequency or you go someplace and you didn't have that programmed into your radio, and you say, oh, okay, you get the frequency, you punch in the frequency, and from a pull down, you grab talk group 3 North America, which is permanently in your radio because it's part of your metric, boom, and now you're in there. So if you can do that kind of thing, that'd be a big deal, I think.
Okay, well, one of the new features we're putting in a CS750 is being able to program the entire radio from the keypad. It turned out it's a bigger project than I expected because I'm writing all the code myself. What makes it difficult is something like about 350 different parameters I have to account for. And even if it only takes me an hour per parameter, that's 350 hours of non-stop work. So the answer is it's going to be done, but it's just taking longer than expected. So you'll be able to put it into the radio, then you can read it back through the PC software and then save it. So that'll be there. Yes?
Yeah, question for you, and I spoke to you right as you were releasing your first radio, right after you had released your first radio. You have a delta between what Motorola is charging and what you ended up charging. And initially, you limited it to one. You wanted to limit it to one per ham before you probably became overwhelmed with a million hams calling you. But how did you, and how and why did you set your price so low when there was already such a significant difference and you were targeting a commercial audience first?
Okay. The reason why we set the prices we did, well, the basic reason is we're not greedy. That's the basic answer. I was hoping to get to the commercial market where, you could sell, all this, well, good example is this one French customer I have. He'll buy 500 to 700 radios at a time. So even if I make, $20 profit per radio, 700 times $20 is a reasonable profit for just calling up or actually just emailing a Chinese vendor and says, ship 700 radios to this customer in France, which is what I do. So I'm happy with the profit margins. Now the reason why you'll see now that the ham price and the commercial price is different, and there's a reason for that. The ham is a lot more effort for us to sell to than the commercial customers. Like I said, commercial customers I'll sell 700 at a time. The hams I'll sell one at a time. And even more important, I'm doing a lot of research and development. I have a lot of research and development costs to help the hams, which I don't do with the commercial customers. Commercial customers get what the Chinese have developed and nothing else. The hams are getting a lot of enhancements to what's needed for the ham market. So that's basically, the reason for the difference in price and why they're relatively inexpensive. Just a question of how greedy are you?
Well, and hams are paying to deal with it. We all know that.
No one in this room, though.
Except for this room
Right.
excluded.
That's 2 meter guy.
Did you ever look at a different distribution?
And they're drinking.
Really than direct? I mean, going full bore, selling elsewhere, having others sell your equipment?
Yeah, we did look about going through distributors and having them sell, like Ham Radio Outlet, which is a good example. In fact, they have actually called us a while back, and here's where the problem is. I can sell through HRO, but then the price is going to go higher, and I didn't feel that they really contributed very much to the overall, to the overall experience. Yeah, call it experience, either to our profits or to the, to the health, health of the ham market. So, why should we do it? Now, if it meant hiring another 2 people to do the actual processing of paperwork, maybe that would have made sense. But I didn't have to hire any additional person to handle the ham market. So again, why should I, increase the cost of the hams for no good reason except to give money to HRO?
So how do we acquire your
What was that?
How do we acquire them?
Oh, you call the company.
So it's direct, you mark
Yeah,
direct.
I mean, there's a few companies that you can also buy from for about the same price. Okay, we sell it to you for $239. We sell it to the distributors for $209. So there's a $30 spread, which they can make a little bit of profit and still sell it to you at the same price. But that's up to them what I really want to sell it to you for.
Can we find the contact information online?
If you go to our website, we will tell you about the different dealers. If you look at the worldwide distributors section, you'll see all of our current dealers that we're supporting.
Just literally search for Connect Systems.
Yeah.
It's really hard to remember.
But for the next week, I don't know if you heard, but we have a special on the MD380 where we sell for $130. So.
Any words of wisdom on the CS800, what's happening there?
It's fairly stable. It sells for, you probably know, $280, and it works good. We haven't had had very few problems with it. We had a few problems at the beginning, which they're all taken care of. First problem is if you hook a good external speaker on it, it blew out the final stage, the amplifier stage. Turns out, if you use a crappy speaker, it wouldn't hurt. And the reason for people who understand the theory is that you're getting some inductive kickback. A good speaker will have a very high Q coil in the. A good speaker will have a very high Q coil within the speaker coil. And the higher the Q, the bigger the inductive kickback is going to be. So after testing, I had these big speakers from my house, which I haven't used in many years, but they're saying like this big by this big. It didn't hurt them at all. But you get a little, I think it was ICOM speaker we got from HRO, and put it on, and within 5 seconds it burst out the stage. So what we did, real simple fix. You put what's called a transorb across the speaker output. It's actually a bilateral transorb, so it doesn't matter which direction the current is going, and it solved the problem. The other problem we had, you were getting some feedback between the microphone and the radio, and all that took was just a capacitor across the microphone element. I think it was 470 picofarad, and that solved that problem. So since that time, there's been no hardware issues. Software is fairly stable. It seems haven't had any real complaints, and it seems to work good.
Thank you.
So have you thought about going into the 900 megahertz?
Yeah, we thought about that, but I'll get you in a second. It's strictly for, well, there's very little, well, it doesn't pay for us to develop it for amateur use. There's not enough amateurs who could buy it. Commercial use, it might make sense, but we just haven't had time at this time because we're competing directly against Motorola at that range, and it's hard to sell to municipalities because if it doesn't have a bat wing on it, they're not interested. So I don't think, okay, let me get this guy first.
Is there a toll-free number?
There is 800, let's see, I think it's 800-545-1349. I haven't used that in many years.
With English-speaking people.
Yeah. And it's on your website.
Yeah,
They don't have to memorize.
Do we still have it on our website?
Huh? I'm asking if it's on. It's on.
I don't see the toll-free, but you're local.
Well, yeah, I don't think the toll-free is on our website anymore.
Oh, okay.
But
But does anybody pay for long distance?
Nobody, that's another thing. Nobody pays for long distance.
yeah, yeah, we still have it, but it's not used very much.
Yeah.
Yes?
Do you have any of the $130 radios here?
No. First of all, I didn't take any radios with me to the show at all. I wasn't planning on selling anything directly.
That's a little different, isn't it? I mean,
You bring samples.
I didn't even bring one to use myself to show.
But there are some here.
Yeah.
yeah.
If you want to take a look at them, there's a few around. We ran out of, because of the sale, we ran out pretty quick. We should get a shipment of 500 more radios sometime between, we think, next Friday and the following Monday or Tuesday. But we haven't gotten the tracking number yet, but they're supposed to ship yesterday to us.
Now, not to put anybody on the spot here, but I know that SNARS, as a club, bought a quantity. I don't know what that was, and I don't want to discuss that publicly, but they got a better price. So for those of you that are involved with clubs or organizations that have got multiple members, I mean, think about this. I mean, you can do a tremendous value and service to your membership by coordinating all this stuff. I mean, you really can. I mean, SFARC, if they had a brain, they could do that. Obviously,
But if they don't have a brain.
you guys could do that.
no brain.
Oh, you guys, yeah. So you have a big organization. Papa in Southern California's got a big organization, so it's,
We only have one. Ray National, who's there, he's been dead for a few years.
I'm not buying it.
Yeah. Yes, we haven't changed the number. Okay, so they're asking about dual band radios. It's not a commitment, but I will try to see if I can get the Chinese guys to make us a dual band radio next year. Okay, but here's now if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to completely finance it myself because there's not much of a demand on a commercial market for that. Other than the APX, was it?
7,000.
7,000.
Which costs how much?
Around 7,000.
So you probably could make one and sell it for 5,000.
Yeah. But they also do P25.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind that 2 meters, the need for a dual band radio in DMR today is really only in Northern California and New England because of the same reason, because of paintballs. So, you know, there are some 2-meter repeaters in other parts of the country that are coming live on DMR, and obviously, if more of the market shifts to digital, and that digital is DMR, then you'll see more 2-meter stuff.
Yeah.
And a dual band radio may help facilitate that.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
Yeah, but there's a better answer about why do 2 meters and 77 meters at the same time. And that's not for the DMR, but for the analog.
Oh.
The analog is still there, so that will allow the people to have a single radio for both DMR and analog in the car.
That is
But now, as far as doing it in a handheld, that's an expensive proposition for us. If the case gets bigger, it'd be easy to do. But with the same size case, we'd have to spend a lot of effort and probably money to put the dual band within the same size case. Now, of course, the question you ask, so how do you do it with these $25, Baofeng radios? The answer is, it's a single chip radio, and it's actually a tri-band radio, even though we don't use the 3rd band in this country. So that's why.
it's a piece of garbage.
Yeah. Yes.
I just want to make a comment, how much we appreciate your support for amateur radio. I think it's wonderful. And you're dealing with, I guess, the 2 different markets, commercial and amateurs. You know, our goal when we purchase these radio, it's an end in itself, because we love radio. We love what they do, we want to learn how it works. Where the commercial users are there so one person can communicate with somebody else. They don't really care how it works, they just need to communicate from point A to point B. So I can understand why you're dealing with maybe a whole different mindset, which is amateurs here. We appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. One advantage of owning the company and being private is I can do what I want.
Thanks again.
How do you program the radio?
Snars.org.
Okay, how do you program the radio? What?
What's the output power?
Okay. Yeah, the UHF is 4 watts, VHF is 5 watts. If you exceed that wattage, then you run into some FCC issues about there's too much power to close to your body. Now the MD380 I believe is rated at 5 watts at the UHF, and I believe we measured it at 5 watts. So yes, it's doable, but it's probably not a good idea to keep it too close to that tower.
External microphone.
Right.
But he's got free software that's on his website, and programming cables are $15 or so?
No, $5.
$5.
Yeah.
So rather than $80, so just, you know. But you would program it very similar to the way you would a Motorola or any other, I mean, to today.
Yeah. The current software for the for the CS750 is almost identical to the Motorola's. So people who's used
Cut and paste works and that kind of stuff. They've come a long way on their software, you know, in the last 6-8 months.
Yeah, and one of the reasons is because we're no longer dependent upon this consulting company who did the CS700. So the manufacturer, you know, will do what's necessary to help the customers, and we're his largest customer. So I get what I want. Yes.
Yeah, I was last year I did a tower climb with Tim's Mount Diablo site, and I had a CS700 on the tower. It fell from 95 feet, and the only thing that broke
On rock.
was the screen. On rock.
It hit rock.
Cracked
at
the
the top
thing
of
open,
Diablo.
ordered a spare part for you for $15 and repaired it, and nothing was wrong.
Yes, it's not a good idea to drop her from that height. But
He was testing.
Experimental radio.
yeah. Probably if you drop it from 5 feet, the display will break. You know, it's hard to say. If you take a look inside the radio, there's a plastic piece of plastic that's over the LCD itself. So that would have to break before you get to the LCD.
We dropped an Apex 4000 off of a 20-foot tower, and the thing was toast. So,
Yeah. It's
$3,000
yeah.
radio.
We know it's a good radio, and we've had other testimonies about, you know, things dropping off of cars, and nobody, you know, as high as yours, but the other people's that didn't damage it at all.
That's a ham radio record.
Yes.
When do you see the software be available to export the zone file? You can export the contact and the digital, the frequency, but you can't export the zone.
You're talking about between a 700 and a 750?
Well, it's 700, 750, that was the problem. The zone file did not get over.
Right.
But even on 750, you don't have the option to export the zone file itself.
Oh, why would you want to do it separately?
To manipulate, you can't move the files up and down. You know, like if I want to go Tim, let's say 10th repeater number 1, I want to put him number 7.
Yeah.
But I can't quite do that. If I figure if I can export, I'm just thinking out loud, if I can export it, put an Excel spreadsheet, move it down to number 7, then re-import it, something like that. Just an idea.
Yeah. I might be able to help you eventually, not for the next few weeks, but maybe in, you know, a few months. In that we're writing some new software for keyboard programming. So being that I wrote it, I can release it. And when I release it, you'll be able to figure out the addresses of the different parameters, which means that somebody who's ambitious can write a program that can really export all parameters and then rearrange it the way you want to.
Do you intend to continue to do your own software, or would you give the ability to like an RT systems?
No. Our RT systems would not work for a DMR type of radio. It's too complicated.
Because, well, the reason I asked is I asked them the question at last year's Pacificon. I said, would you ever write for a Motorola? They said, no, but maybe a CSI.
Well, the problem about, you know, the RT systems is that they may be able to do it, but it probably it's too complicated to use for their type of a system. Their system is good for a simple analog radio, but when you get into all of the interrelationships with DMR, it's just not going to work out. Their stuff's good if you can put everything on a single screen, but we know when you have 20, 30 screens, the RT system just is not the right answer. Not that we care if they do it, but I don't see them doing it, and I don't see people using it even if they did it, even if we did it. Yes?
There's one caveat with the software, which so far has been pretty good, is that when you create a repeater, let's say 10 repeater, let's say it's going to TIM 54, just for argument's sake. and his ID number, group call, it may be 33,250, for example. Unfortunately, when you create the zone file and you put that 1054 in there, you have to scroll all the way down to find that 37. It doesn't keep the group files to themselves together. It creates the, with the 32.
He's talking about the top group.
Wait a minute.
You're talking
With the top group.
You're talking about contacts?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the issue with the 750. As you may know, we have 65,536 contacts available.
They're all in here.
What?
They're all in here.
Right. Yeah. Now, in order to use a reasonable amount of memory, I told the manufacturer, here's how I want to do it. And what I do is I basically compress the contacts into 6 bits per character. Normally in the existing 700 and the commercial version of the 750, it's using 16 bits per character. And the reason for doing that, I want to stick everything in 1 megabyte. So you have 2 problems, or at least, well, here's the issue. In a 700, or the commercial version of 750, where you have 1,000 contacts, if you want to find a contact, you have to do a search through all of the 1,000 people. And that takes quite a while to do. If you did 65,000, it would take probably a few seconds. So what I do in this 750 is I arrange things in numerical order. And by doing that, I can then do a binary search to find the particular user in the memory. And I can do that. It takes about, I think, maximum of around 10 or 15 searches to find it. But if I just left it the same way, had it in original CPS software where it was random, it wouldn't work. So the only way to get around that is, and we probably will do it eventually, is to have a search feature within that system to allow you to find what you want. But I can't do, I can't keep it in the same order as you do in the CPS. So when it goes from the CPS to the radio, it has to resort the thing into a numerical order.
I have a MD3 radio. Do you have any influence with the manufacturer on any of the features? For there's one thing in particular. So the software will do more than 13 characters, but it will only hold 13 characters. So like one of the things would be great is to do like a wraparound, assuming it could happen. Do you have any influence to the manufacturer now?
Well, let me explain. The reason why we went from a 700 to a 750 is and the 700 and the MD380s were written by the same group of people. It was that consulting company who did that work were completely non-responsive to any changes. They weren't even very responsive to fixed problems. So the answer is, don't expect anything that you recommend or the ham community recommends to be implemented. It may get done, but not because you wanted it, but because they felt they wanted to do it.
You have control over the 700 and the MD380, you don't pay for that.
Exactly. Yeah, the 750 was written entirely by the manufacturer, which is, he expected to do it in about 3 months when he first started the project. It took him about a year and a half. I think he was also expected to do it with just himself, and he ended up hiring 4 people just to work on our project. So as I said, because I'm his largest single largest customer, I can usually get things that are necessary.
Do you have any free any of the other products used in the commercial market, in the non-ham market?
I don't think they're used in the non-commercial market. The reason for that, or at least not very much, and the reason for that, the commercial market is almost entirely owned by Motorola. They sold at least 1.5 million of the 6550s. I don't think anybody's ever come close on any other types of radios, to get to those types of numbers. So the end result is that the commercial customers, they're willing to pay whatever it costs, as long as it has a bat wing on it.
But I gotta see, even at the regular price of 165, I mean, this is a lot of radio, what it is, in a different market than that, it would pay $500 or $600 or $700 or something. Motorola to get started.
Yeah.
The entry point.
I mean, to give you a, a partial answer about, what's, happening, is that one of the reasons why we tried so hard to get into the amateur market was because by getting into the amateur market, the amateurs usually work for companies that use radios. And we were hoping that they would then tell their bosses, or they may have been the boss themselves, to start using our radios. So the answer is, we've gotten a few customers like that, but we haven't gotten very many. We have one potential customers, and it's still in the negotiation stage, where they're going to probably use over the next few years around 200,000 radios.
Wow.
But there's no guarantee we'll ever get that, that type of an order.
Chris is going to be very busy.
Well, yeah, but actually that customer is going to make it under license themselves, and it's not going to be in this country either. You're not going to find any customers at large other than the government, and they're not going to buy anything other than Motorola.
Anything else, guys? We're good?
One question here. You said in your talk about the use of this one microprocessor. Are you thinking about redoing the design around another kind of microprocessor to make things easier, or are you just stuck with it?
No, we're stuck with it. There's actually a reason why we're kind of stuck with it. If you use first of all, the softwares are already written for that microprocessor, so it's easier to add on to it. So then the next question goes, what happens if we want to add, say, Fusion, and the microprocessor is too slow? So the answer is, the only processor which is faster is a digital signal processor. So if we did a digital signal processor, yes, we can do the Fusion, and in theory we could do DMR, but if you have to take a look at how long it's taken these companies to do DMR using a DSP chip, and the answer is the Chinese from Hytera spent about 5 or 6 years to develop their first DMR radio, with probably, I'm guessing, 50 or 100 engineers using a digital signal processor. Curacin spent about 5 years to do the same thing. I'm guessing they probably had around 10, 15 engineers on that project. So the answer is, if I want to implement DMR on this radio using the same technology they did, I probably never would get it done. So,
how big is the DMR market compared to, say, DSTAR?
Okay, DMR market from commercial is, look at Motorola, they sold about 1.5 million radios. You look at, say, DSTAR, I think there's maybe 20,000 or so users. So from a company like Motorola or ICOM or Kenwood, it doesn't justify to develop those types of radios. I'm even surprised, they did a Fusion. The only explanation I have is that Fusion is close enough to NXDN and P25 where it's not that much of an engineering task, to do it. So they may have had their own reasons for doing it, but I don't think it makes sense economically to do it.
Fusion?
Yeah. The Fusion is very close to NXDN from a technology standpoint, and NXDN is not real difficult to do, but it does take a lot of time, especially if you have to do everything through DSP.
As far as infrastructure, obviously we can speak for California, that in, let's say, DSTAR's best period, there probably were maybe 20 systems. Some of them have multiple bands, throughout throughout California. And today in California, there's
103.
Is it 103 repeaters?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't know why the build out of the infrastructure has happened as rapid as it has, and the numbers it has.
Because it works. That's
Well,
why.
it works, yeah.
It works and it's easy to get set up.
Yeah, I know.
Everything is, it just works, and the voice quality is so good with DMR. Now, this is strictly an opinion of mine. I believe that the problem with DSTAR as far as voice quality is two things, and we'll find out when we, implement it. The first is, I don't think they did a good job of implementing the algorithm for error recovery within DSTAR. And the second reason is that ICOM is just too cheap to make a good radio.
Even though they charge a lot.
I mean, if you take a look at the audio output stage, I think it's rated, was it 250 milliwatts or something? These, Motorola hours and, the commercial radios, they're usually rated at about 1 watt. And there's a big difference between, 250 milliwatts and 1 watt as far as voice quality goes.
The other thing that we're seeing in California now is we're seeing, let's call them the old guard, just for lack of a better term. And those are the existing long-term repeater owner community. Guys like Bacon, obviously Carl got involved early on, but we're seeing more of them. We're seeing them from Southern California. Cactus, for instance. I mean, several of these very, very large analog, long-time analog guys, they're not abandoning, analog, but, Papa. I mean, Papa's a big organization. I mean, how many repeaters do you guys now have? And this is in 1 year. How many? I mean, and that's 10 repeaters that are all at like 20,000 feet and above. I mean, Lucas, for instance. Lucas covers. It's an enormous footprint. I mean, it's just an incredible. And Kurt will probably share the number of people in California that are covered with DMR RF today is
over 90% of Californians can hit a DMR repeater from their home.
I know last year the Red Cross came to the exhibit and they looked at the coverage map and they went, was this what your planned coverage is or something like that? No, that's what's there today. Of course, I didn't reprint the map because it's just, the ink is too expensive. Geez, you guys are killing me with that. But the coverage that this network has, is, and it's happened in 5 years. I mean, it truly is unbelievable.
We had the same thing in Reno. You were up in February.
Right.
And in
I was told it was December that we went up.
In 6 weeks, we had 2 boxes up.
Right. And now you got the third one that the snow melted.
We have 130 users.
Right. I mean, just like that.
Yeah.
Exponential growth.
I mean, it's, and you're right. I guess it is because it works. The audio sounds good, and from a repeater point of view, it is so easy to put a repeater on the air. My God, it's easy. I mean, it's. I mean, we can put a repeater on the air. If you have an antenna system and duplexers, we can put a repeater on the air at your location after we get there in 7.5 minutes. There's no audio to adjust. There's nothing. Just boom and leave.
Tim, you know what we're missing? HRO has Yesu stamped on their ass. Man, if you walk into HRO, they're trying to sell you Fusion.
Not doing too good.
I don't think they're doing, you know what? They don't have a dinner going on tonight. I'm just saying. And by the way, you guys all paid your own check. So.
Wait a second, I built my deal.
So, I don't know. I mean, it's all good stuff because it's better than analog.
Take it off in Europe unbelievably fast.
Fusion has?
No.
DMR?
DMR.
Yeah. And what I don't understand about Europe is that most of Europe is Hytera. I mean, the numbers of Hytera systems over there are absolutely incredible. And I don't understand why, because the delta, the difference between the price of a Hytera repeater that isn't really compatible with the IP site connect of the Motorola system, we're not talking about that much difference. Maybe we're talking about $300 or $400. Well, $300 or $400 may seem like a lot of money, but if it's $2,000 for the repeater, that's not the total cost of the install. By the time you put hardline and everything else, and you're looking at a $4,000 or $5,000 number, depending on your site, it's still the difference of $300 or $400. I mean, it's an insignificant number in the grand scheme of things. And I don't know why Europe went to Hytera. I don't. And I thought the delta would be different. That the Hytera prices were substantially cheaper and Motorola was substantially more. No, they pay about the same price in their dollars as we would in our dollars.
The difference is the dealer network.
I guess. I mean, it really is incredible. And of course now, you know, as we know, we're going to be able to gain access to the Hytera network through the reflector system. And whether that's what we want or not, you know, that probably remains to be seen. The domestic Hytera market is pretty small. There's about 20 repeaters. You know, compared to, I don't know. I mean, I guess in North America, DMR repeaters are probably close to 1,000.
There's 1,500 in the world.
1,500 in the world?
In the United States.
Hey, Kim, is there a lot of fusions in Northern California?
I think there's a lot of people that got them or bought them, but they're operating in analog mode. So I'm not aware of anybody that's running a fusion repeater in digital mode that's connected to some infrastructure today.
I think we have to realize there's a catalyst going on. The catalyst is Yaesu offering this special deal. You know, $500 repeaters. That's the thing. That's the incentive for a lot of radio clubs to buy these repeaters. If you have a coordinated repeater, you know, no matter where you are in the country.
That you bought 70 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And you bought it used 70 years ago.
Yeah. As long as it's coordinated, Yaesu, I don't know if that promotional campaign is still going on, but it has been going on for a while where they will offer you a great deal, $500 for a whole repeater system.
Dave, by the way, that repeater, under any amount of decent usage, does what?
Fire.
Blows up.
Blows up. And so they're faced with the reality of a situation.
Not using that high quality.
I run it at 5 watts, it probably lasts a long time.
5 watts.
Half a milliwatt.
$1,000 on a PA, you may have a good repeater system.
They're 20-watt
You're kind of at the
repeaters
same
that have
price
used
as
at 20
Motorola.
watts.
That's the key to Yaesu trying to get fusion going, because it offers such an incentive.
So last year, on Saturday, I approached that vendor. How's things going? It's unbelievable. We're selling stuff left, right, and center. Wow! I think the repeaters were $1,800 or something like that. Sunday, the next day, special, you can buy them now for $500. Now let me make sure that I got that right. Yesterday they were selling, you couldn't keep them on the shelves at $1,800, and today they're $500? You know, why would someone do that if they're selling them like crazy? So.
In Northern California, there's 5 fusion repeaters on the air running in mixed mode.
They're running mixed mode, okay. Are any of them connected to network infrastructure yet?
Yes, they are.
They are? Where?
Kings Mountain.
Sorry, where?
Kings Mountain Woodside.
Woodside.
They have their internet connection.
And how is it? How's it?
Well, I'm just learning myself, I just got mine hooked up last week.
Ah, okay. All right.
Film's expensive.
Yeah. So how many guys want to give up DMR and go to Fusion?
How many people, not for 400, I'd be curious on how many people they have a radio that they work with, so they can be know somebody else.
That's interesting. Here's a question. How many people in the room have a Fusion radio?
A radio that will do Fusion.
That does try to get them in DMR. You know, if there was one complaint, the complaint was only one manufacturer, and therefore the perception of one manufacturer, and that's why the high price. Now, whether that's factual or not, I don't know that, but that was the perception. And, you know, obviously a pretty large group of people bought into it, and it works. I happen to think DMR works better, but and from the repeater point of view, to implement a DSTAR repeater, boy, that was a lot of work. I know that Greg had them, and he just couldn't, for whatever reason, at a site that he's at, he just couldn't keep the gateway running. Where on Diablo, I never had a problem with the gateway. The gateway worked for years without a problem. I don't know why.
It's not fireproof.
Yeah. But no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
They got crispy.
Yep. But the DMR repeaters are truly simple to get on the air network. And why Fusion did what they did, I know last year, had the Fusion repeater, it was okay, so I sold the interface box, and so you bought the interface box, and then you plugged it into the repeater, and I thought, okay, great. But then you have to connect it to a computer. And I thought, well, why wouldn't you have put the computer, let's say, into the interface box, a Raspberry Pi? Why force everybody to put 3 things in line, and then at a commercial site, as we know, to run a computer at a commercial site, this is not a $200 computer that you're going to run on a commercial site if you want it to stay working. We're talking about hardened type of computers, industrial strength type, $1,400–1,500 for computers. Well, that's added to the cost of the $500 Fusion.
That's why it's $500.
If you're going to run it at your house or something, okay, you can use a less expensive computer. But if you want stuff to work long term, it's got to be commercial quality stuff, and it's all built into DMR, as we know. So anyway, anything else from anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
You promised us a little digital.
Oh yeah. So Al wants to talk about DSTAR. Go ahead.
I do. I want to say just a few things.
Thanks, Al.
Because last year I felt like. Can I show up at the digital dinner and talk about another digital mode just for a few moments? And so this is my few moments.
You want to wear my hat?
I have to go to the bathroom really bad, so just a few minutes. I got to say, this last year has been for DSTAR one of the most remarkable years I've seen in the 5 years I've been in it. This is a mode where you can be a ham and experiment, and the equipment that they sell you, as he points out, is not all that great, but hams have themselves in the last 3 or 4 years made equipment, and I can show you something. I wish I had brought it, but I didn't. This little unit that we put together using a simple Raspberry Pi, and yeah, you got to learn a little programming language, but people are there to help you. Some people have done it so successfully. A thing no larger than this, it's up in my room, no larger than this.
That's your wallet.
Can be, that's exactly.
Pass that around? We pass that around?
You're saying it's a lot of money? Is that what you're saying?
He says there's a lot of money in there.
Yeah, okay, now let's, so no bigger than this. You can take this and put this in your car. You can carry it with you in your hotel room. You can go across the United States, as many of our PAPA members have done, in your car. You don't worry about repeaters. You don't care if there are 2,000 repeaters in a state and 0 in most of the other states.
You got a repeater in your car.
Because this little thing ties into the telephone system, and you can, with high quality, linking into any single repeater you want in the country. The repeater operators are, first of all, let me say, I love DMR. I have many DMR radios. I talk on it all day, as he knows. But I also love DSTAR, and I want you to know what DSTAR is about. You can link with every single repeater in the world on DSTAR from this little radio that you have here, or from your repeater in your home location. But if you're in Idaho or something, and you don't have that many DSTAR repeaters, you can have the same power as a repeater has in the palm of your hand, and it's all ham developed. Ham's developed it with Raspberry Pis.
Yeah.
It's the DV Mini is what the new DV Minis and the DV4 Mini.
Oh, that does DMR also?
No, it certainly does DMR because we're expanding into other areas. But I'm telling you, the ability to, you want to attend a net, you used to live in Chicago like I used to, they have the Illinois DSTAR net. I want to go there, and I want to sit there for 2 hours and talk with the old buddies back in Illinois. That's almost unheard of if you have to use a repeater. But if you've got your own Raspberry Pi and your own hotspot, it's yours to control. You can go wherever you want at any time. You're on a business trip to New York or to Europe, and you want to call back to Southern California or Northern California, that's a tough task. Not with DSTAR. You can just link up directly from your hotel room, and it's a wonderful thing. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying it's different, and it's a fully alive and exciting DSTAR is not dead by any chance. And if you're interested in technology, just tune in sometime on to the DSTAR. Well, of course, you got to be on DSTAR to get it, but most of you raised your hands, you have DSTAR. Reflector 12A, Thursday night at 8 o'clock is the DSTAR Roundtable. Have you heard of a net week after week going on for 4 hours or 5 hours straight? That's what this net does, because there's so much exciting new stuff going on in DSTAR. So thanks very much for all that Tim's done, and of course, we got to say to Cecil, who's not only has 10 repeaters on DMR, but he's got 14 strong, long-standing repeaters on DSTAR and 14 analog repeaters. He's running them all, too, at the same time. It's all great. And as I was coming, last thing I'll say, I was coming into the airport in Oakland, and there was somebody that looked like they had an old Motorola repeater in their hands, and it was making beep-boop sounds like a digital things, except what was coming over, he was yelling, "What did you say? What was that?" And it was coming back, "No, what did you say?" That was analog. The difference, digital is the right thing. We're all doing the right thing. But let's respect everybody's way of doing it and, you know, keep it in mind. It's a good system. They're all good systems. Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Question, Tim, I don't know how many of you guys know Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Jim has been very instrumental working with Jim over here. Stand up for a second, Jim. Come on. These two guys have been doing R&D for the last 4 or 5 years and have put a lot of fun back into amateur radio. I gotta tell you, this guy and this guy, we got two good guys doing R&D. Where they're gonna go, nobody knows, but keep your eyes on these two guys because they're both going to be talking tomorrow, and if you want to spend some good time, Jim's going to do a presentation. I'd like him to just give you a 5-minute overview of what he's going to be talking about tomorrow, if you don't mind.
So I will add on to what Al said. The DV Mega board that he was talking about, Goose now has DMR firmware for it. So you can do DSTAR or DMR, and you can use it with the DV4 Mini software if you get all the right versions lining up.
Okay.
And his Fusion firmware is in progress. So all three support.
We can talk to Ed in San Diego because no one else is on Fusion.
Yeah, that's right. So something that was announced a week or so ago was Jonathan Naylor, G4KLX, who's best known for his DSTAR repeater software. And I have been developing something he's calling MMDVM, and he announced it and released some of the first firmware for it, and I've been doing the hardware for it. So it's a Arduino Do board, and this is just a repurposed GMSK board that we have just because it's a prototype. And he's doing the modem and software in the DSP. So he has a DSTAR working now, DMR is just days away from being done. Fusion, P25, and analog are coming along as well.
Really?
Wow. One radio interface board, one DSP board, and connect to your radio. Connects to your PC by USB.
So, so you do have to connect it to a radio?
To a radio.
But to an analog radio?
To an analog radio.
Then I thought you were the cops for a minute. I was like, wow, I'm going to jail.
So this is going to get discussed a little more tomorrow.
Okay, close up with that.
Oh, yeah. I have a very small number of prototypes that were hand-assembled.
Because I know somebody that's leaving on the 6th of December.
And we now have clean firmware for 7021 for the Papa 7021 board to do DSTAR. So now that the DMR stuff, as soon as it gets settled on here, I'm going to backport that to it, and then you'll have it built into the 7021
Amazing.
board as well, and then Fusion will follow. And so there's...
And this, and I'm assuming this will only connect, let's say in the DMR world, to the reflector.
Yeah, it's what Jonathan is writing now, and he's working with the guy that did the DMR Plus team to do that.
Yeah,
and if somebody would ever open up the rules,